So this is the true story NEPA-Nerds picked to record a recording about how much we love NEPA and have it all taped and broadcast to the rest of WSP. We're going to find out what happens when people stop being polite and start being real NEPA-Nerds. We are the Environmental Process and Policy Practice. We are a group of NEPA-Nerds who provide strategic advice to clients across the country on some of the biggest infrastructure projects that WSP works on. We do stuff ranging from building an entire organizational group to implement NEPA on behalf of the state authority, to developing policies and procedures, to helping clients plan out the path that they should take to secure environmental approvals to move to construction. We monitor federal policy, state policy, and provide updates to our clients on how best to leverage the changing policy landscape to ensure that their projects can advance to successful completion. And we are all passionate about NEPA and are happy to share our stories with you today.
It's what we do. We live and breathe it. We're always thinking about it in some way, shape, or form, I think. And I think that's probably when I realized that I'm a true NEPA ninja in that sense. And our whole team we really like what we do. And for me in particular, I came to WSP after having been at the White House Council on Environmental Quality for a number of years, where I helped implement NEPA across all of the federal agencies. And prior to that, had a long career at EPA. And so thinking about the environment and how we interact with the environment is something that has always just, not only does it fascinate me, but it is the kind of thing that challenges me. And I think one of the hallmarks of what our team does is we really help all of our clients, whether they're state DOTs or MPOs or private clients, big or small. I think we help folks figure out what the right questions are to ask in the projects that they want to do, and then help them look for creative solutions to those questions and challenges, and do it in a way that really expedites the process, helps cut through the red tape. I think that that's actually probably one of the greatest things our team collectively brings to the NEPA practice is we all seem to have a sixth sense, an intuit kind of how the process ought to work and should work, and then can tap into the resources that our clients already have to help them accentuate their own strengths to really deliver great projects and great outcomes for the communities that they build in.
I became a NEPA nerd really by accident. I think it was my college career was marked by a complete, overwhelming sense of indecision, and I landed in an environmental policy class that I felt compelled to then take environmental economics, environmental ethics, and eventually a major was born for me. And then I have pursued that passion through a number of different jobs in the private and public sector, doing essentially permitting and approvals for linear projects. First, it was telecommunications for a civil engineering firm in Kansas City. And then I went into transportation, working for the Federal Highway Administration, and then ultimately with the Secretary's office at DOT, where we did policy on accelerating environmental reviews and approvals. And it has been really a hallmark of all of that work that you try to seek the solutions that warrant or result in better outcomes for the communities and the project sponsors, while also protecting the environment, and doing that without losing the rigor of the environmental analysis. And that's what I think we carry forward into the practice, is all of that experience in government to apply to implementation in the private sector, to the lessons learned and the strategies that we have to negotiate the various pitfalls within the regulatory environment to position projects for success. And that's a really exciting part of our job.
It's always so much fun. And one of the things about NEPA is that you get to talk about all the different options that you might build, that you could do, all the different pros and cons. And I feel like we do that every day whenever we get together. And so NEPA for me is a living embodiment of how I see the world.
I actually came out of the environmental advocacy world, having worked with a variety of NGOs during and after grad school. and subsequently had the opportunity to enter public service during the Obama administration, working with the U.S. Department of Transportation in the Office of the Secretary, and spending some time with the White House Council on Environmental Quality before eventually being able to join our team here at WSP. Throughout my career, I had exposure to a wide variety of environmental laws, but was always attracted to NEPA. NEPA is the umbrella that encompasses a wide variety of resources, potential impacts, and types of actions and decisions. Some other federal laws may be more prescriptive or more focused, but NEPA is the one that touches on everything and whose purpose is to improve information available to decision makers and to ensure the public's voices are heard. Now more than ever, it is critical that the public has meaningful input and our leadership has robust information, and it's an exciting time to be a NEPA professional in our field.
I became a NEPA nerd in college when I discovered that I had no idea what I wanted to do in school. I started out taking business classes, economics, then I got to accounting and I wasn't so sure about that. And I was filling some of my honors college electives, and one of them was an environmental class that focused in sustainability. And I really came to love that. I just really enjoyed learning about the interaction between the human environment and the natural environment, and seeing how what we do really impacts the natural environment. And so I changed my major from business over to environmental science, and it's been that way ever since. And I'm really excited. My background was in permitting in the past, and now I'm really excited to actually get to do some NEPA work and really grow those skills as well.
How did I become a NEPA nerd? Well, this is quite a while ago, maybe about 20 years ago. I was teaching at a university, and I was teaching a NEPA class, so I knew some about it, and I was doing a whole bunch of other things with environmental policy, and that's what I'd studied in school. And then one day somebody asked me to teach a NEPA workshop for people who were practicing NEPA professionals at federal agencies and consultants and others. And at the end of explaining what they wanted me to do, they said, oh, by the way, you need to be prepared to answer absolutely any question on NEPA. And that sort of terrified me, and I ended up diving in a bit deeper. I had about a month to prepare, and as I just dove into trying to learn everything that I could about NEPA, I discovered, wow, actually, I really like this law and this process. And I think, as I know some of my colleagues have said, one of the things that's, I think, most of interest to me that I really love about NEPA is in its process nature, the idea that it allows for really all different viewpoints, particularly on projects that might be more controversial. And it's got this sort of optimistic, I always view it this way, kind of view of the world that if we just go out and gather the information scientifically and otherwise and place it before somebody who's going to make a decision, that will, by its nature, allow them to make a better or maybe even the best decision, but particularly among choices of different alternatives. And it isn't, even though it's environmentally related, and that's what I studied in school, it isn't sort of strident and advocating for one particular position. And I think that's a really powerful aspect, because some of our other environmental laws have other purposes, and that's not part of what they do. But this law, it really is at the core of it. And I always enjoy working with this process, because I believe in it at its core. And so sometimes it doesn't work out perfectly, but most of the time it leads to a really great outcome. And I think that's really important.
If I had a NEPA superpower, which I do, it is actually being able to connect the dots and see the different connections at the different levels of government involvement on a project, but also across stakeholder groups and across resources. And so oftentimes when you're working on a project, you realize that taking a decision over here is going to raise an issue over here, and being able to weave all of that together seamlessly so that you can get the environmental review done quickly and provide the best outcomes for the community and the project sponsor I just love that feeling.
Remind myself and experience the benefits of what it is we do and the process that we help facilitate, whether that's getting out in my community and seeing the types of transportation or infrastructure projects that are so important for communities and our built environment, as well as spending as much of my time out, with my family, out hiking or camping or mountain biking or climbing out in the natural environment that we also try and facilitate the protection of, while balancing those interests.
Working on behalf of an agency that was trying to advance a project that was clearly deficient in its consideration of the environmental outcomes, and its, if it were implemented, would have significant environmental consequences. And this was actually one that pursued the route that CEQ affords to refer a project for arbitration on in grounds of negative environmental outcomes. And it was also that project kind of instilled in me the belief that there are sometimes opportunities for leadership from a policy perspective to intervene to ensure that the better outcome is chosen, and not leave it to the decisions of perhaps the sponsors who may not have a broader perspective of what the outcome of their project may be.
You know, I haven't actually. I mean, I did it a little bit, but my career started after graduate school teaching at the university level. And while NEPA was one of my classes, I had a bunch of other classes and things like environmental planning and land use planning. But I had an opportunity on my sabbatical when I was in academia to go to Washington, D.C. and do a fellowship. And through that, I was offered an opportunity to actually start doing NEPA work on projects rather than teaching it. And I found that I actually liked that better, that it was actually both challenging, as I think several of my colleagues have said, the challenge of working on NEPA projects, the really great people like this group that you get to work with, which is incredibly satisfying. And I found that I actually liked doing NEPA better than teaching it for the most part. And so I eventually transitioned away and left academia and to go in to do NEPA work full time, and never looked back, and been very happy with my decision. It's been incredibly satisfying as a career choice, but it was a big change, and I thought a lot about it carefully at the time. But I'm really glad that I made the choice that I did.
It's just always been fun. Like, one thing has kind of led to another, and these are honestly, I mean, maybe I'm a philosopher at heart, but these are the kinds of things I love to sit around and have a glass of wine about and talk about ad nauseum anyway. So I think that, you know, you get into a project and you realize this is really cool, and it takes you down a rabbit trail, and then you realize, oh, I want to pursue this, and then before you know it, 30 years have gone.
A good career choice is if you can sit around with your friends to talk about what you do, and it doesn't feel like work, even if it is, which is what I think we do almost every day.
Because he just sent an email saying,
he's watching the whole thing.